Tonight on Hannity, we are monitoring a devastating fire that destroyed a New Jersey boardwalk already hit hard by Hurricane Sandy. But first tonight, one of the most untrustworthy, ruthless, authoritarian dictators in the world has a message for you, the American people. Now, helping him deliver that message, none other than the leftists over at the New York Times. In a brazen op-ed penned by Russian President Vladimir Putin, he warns, quote, the potential strike by the United States against Syria, despite strong opposition from many countries and major political and religious leaders, including the Pope, will result in more innocent victims and escalation, potentially spreading the conflict far beyond Syria's borders. He goes on to write, quote, it is alarming that military intervention in internal conflicts in foreign countries has become commonplace for the U.S. Is it in America's long-term interests? I doubt it. Now, later in the column, Comrade Putin dismisses our long-held belief that America is the greatest country on earth by writing, quote, it is extremely dangerous to encourage people to see themselves as exceptional, whatever the motivation. Now, throughout much of the day, a number of lawmakers were asked to react to this lecture. House Speaker John Boehner said he was insulted. The Democratic chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said it made him, quote, want to vomit. And while the White House wasn't exactly complimentary of Putin's critique either, Jay Carney's first reaction to the column left many people scratching their heads. Watch this.
Both in his op-ed and in the statements and actions that we've seen from President Putin and his foreign minister, it is clear that President Putin has invested his credibility in transferring Assad's chemical weapons to international control and ultimately destroying them. This is significant. Russia is Assad's patron and protector, and the world will note whether Russia can follow through on the commitments that it's made.
All right, let's keep in mind that Russia helped arm Syria with chemical weapons in the first place. Now, Jay Carney made that clear. They are Syria's protector, which is why it's almost laughable that we would trust anything that Vladimir Putin says. In short, the international embarrassment for Team Obama continues to unfold. Here with reaction, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, welcome back to the program. What's your reaction to all this?
Sean. Well, you know what I heard, Sean? I heard the New York Times loved the anti-American screed so much that they've offered Putin a position on their editorial board.
Well, maybe I guess he'll be the new Frank Rich, the new writer at the New York Times.
You know, and Russia's struggling a little bit economically. If they offer him enough, maybe he'll come over and work for them.
All right, but there is a little, and I hate to admit this, I really do, but there is some truth. When he called Kerry out on being wrong about who the rebels actually are. I mean, even the Free Syrian Army's general, brigadier general, said that Israel's their enemy. And he didn't, a lot of these rebels are al-Qaeda linked, al-Nusra and some of these other groups. So he's right on that, is he not? And isn't the administration wrong? I hate to admit it, but I think he's right.
Well, it's a really messy situation, and it's why a military solution just doesn't exist. If we bomb Assad, that he becomes so unstable, then the chemical weapons become maybe loose within the country, maybe al-Qaeda, maybe al-Nusra, maybe the extremists on the other side get possession of the chemical weapons, which may well be worse than Assad. If we bomb Assad, the refugee problem into Jordan, I think, becomes worse. If we bomb Assad, I think he may unleash chemical weapons on Israel. There's a lot of things that come from bombing Assad. None of them are good. And I think it also emboldens the Islamic rebels who have kidnapped 2 bishops. They're beheading people and putting it on video. One of the Islamic rebels was eating the internal organs of one of the Syrian soldiers. I don't see any good party to this war.
What do you, I think that he's right also in as much as this could spread and be a broader conflict. But looking at his actions in all of this, the editorial, calling Kerry a liar, moving his ships into the region, threatening to protect Syria with missile defense, threatening to arm Iran. What do you make of this? It's almost saber-rattling by him against the U.S. What do you think his purpose here is?
Like President Obama, to save face. So both sides want to save face. Both sides want to rattle their sabers and show how strong they are. But in reality, if you really want a diplomatic solution, neither side should be saying a word about this publicly. We shouldn't be tweaking each other and digging at each other like 7th graders. We should be quiet, diplomatic about it, and understand that really there's a self-interest to both Russia and the United States to getting those chemical weapons out of Syria.
But there's only one guy doing the tweaking here, and that's Putin. That's Russia. I don't see.
Well, you may be right. You know, I mean, if this were a tennis match, it'd be advantage Putin. He seems to be running circles around the administration.
What do you make of the fact that he was right about the Boston bombers and warned us, and we didn't listen to him, and he's right about the rebels being Al-Qaeda linked and more extreme than the characterizing by John Kerry and by Barack Obama?
Well, you know, I think the truth is what the truth is, and I'm disappointed we didn't do more to heed their warnings on the Boston Marathon bombers when that young man went back to Chechnya, the young Boston bomber. I'm disappointed we didn't know about it and renew our surveillance of him. So, yeah, I am disappointed about that. I am also very concerned that the Syrian civil war involves evil people on both sides of it and that there's no good purpose for America in that war.
What do you make of Eric Cantor's show vote, where in one vote it would have had House members both fund and defund Obamacare, so they could say they voted to defund it, but in reality they were really funding it?
Well, I think they've gotten a message from the House members, the House Republicans. I think they've shot that idea down. And I really think what we need to do and what the people want us to do is Republicans control the House. People are realistic. We know we can't win every battle up here, but we should use that leverage to try to make Obamacare less bad. All the news reports today are talking about low-income people having to provide insurance for their families and being penalized. Even Bill Clinton's talking about this now. There are so many unintended consequences of this bill. It's going to be a disaster for the country. The president, even though it's his baby, should delay the whole thing for a year, and we should study what's going to happen if this bill gets implemented.
To buy off big labor, now they're going to carve out exemptions so to buy their silence while the rest of America is caught up in this system. What do you think of that?
Without question, it is unconstitutional to amend legislation by the president without congressional authority.
Well, he's done it 19 times by adding delays involved.
This is a constitutional law professor who needs to go back to square one and redo his own course. The thing is the Constitution says the legislature writes the law, the president executes it, but he doesn't get to execute only the parts he likes or the things he thinks may work.
All right, let me ask you, so you're headed to New Jersey tomorrow?
I'm going to be endorsing Steve Lonegan, who's running up there, and we're going to be talking about real people who are out of work in Newark instead of Cory Booker's imaginary friend T-Bone. We're going to look for T-Bone, but my understanding is he's a composite. He's not a real person, so I don't know. We want to talk about real unemployment. He wants to talk about his imaginary friend.
Are you disappointed Governor Christie? Apparently he's not going to be there to meet you?
We're going to have a beer stein full of beer for him. If he'll show up, I want to break bread and have a beer with him sometime.
Now, you're there to support Steve Lonegan in his race. Are you going to endorse Chris Christie? You guys have had a little back and forth.
You know, I hadn't thought about that. You know, he hadn't asked me yet. I'm going to stay up late tonight and see if he calls me and asks me for my endorsement.
And what would your answer be if he does?
We vet all candidates, Sean. I mean, I have to wait. We have to get a request. There's a process here. This doesn't happen, you know, on live TV.
Well, why not? I mean, no better time than just me, you, and a couple of million people. I mean, that's not a problem.
No, I wish the governor luck in his election. He's the Republican nominee. I wish him luck in his election. The polls look good for him, and I hope he wins.
Is that your endorsement?
That's about as good as you can get, Sean. What else can I say?
All right, I'm just pressing. It's my job. I got to ask. All right, good to see you, Senator. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean.